Okay, student, we are starting hydrogen chloride today. In fact, hydrogen chloride is a gas and it is highly soluble in water. And when this hydrogen chloride dissolves in water, it forms hydrochloric acid. That all of you know. It's a very common acid, common mineral acid. Now, hydrogen chloride means, in fact, hydrochloric acid is commonly known as muriatic acid, and this name was given by Lavoisier. And later on, Davy named it as hydrochloric acid. This Humphrey Davy named it as hydrochloric acid. Now, the general methods of preparation of hydrogen chloride gas, the first method is by direct combination, that's by synthesis. Hydrogen directly reacts with chlorine, okay, in presence of diffuse sunlight, to give hydrogen chloride, okay. Now, why diffuse sunlight? Because this reaction, if you take in fact it is explosive in direct sunlight, and the reaction is negligible in dark. So diffuse sunlight is taken, okay. And the next method of preparation is from metal chloride. Now, metal chloride, preferably NaCl and KCl, because they react better, and with concentrated sulfuric acid. So that means when sodium chloride reacts with concentrated sulfuric acid and it is heated, but the temperature should be below 200 degrees Celsius. That means just around 200 degrees Celsius. The temperature should not exceed 200 degrees Celsius. Now, why it should not exceed 200 degrees Celsius, we will discuss later, I will tell you. But here just remember the condition. So NaCl plus H2SO4, temperature less than 200 degrees Celsius, we get NaHSO4, that's sodium hydrogen sulfate and hydrogen chloride gas. And similarly, if instead of NaCl, if I take KCl, then same thing, below 200 degrees Celsius, concentrated sulfuric acid, we get KHSO4, that's potassium bisulfate and hydrogen chloride gas. Okay, so these are the two main general method of preparation of hydrogen chloride gas. Okay. Okay, now we'll do laboratory preparation. You can see the arrangement of laboratory preparation here. This is a round bottom flask, a Thistle funnel, and the delivery tube. This is a Wolf's bottle, and this is a gas jar. Now, the reactants in the laboratory, we take NaCl and concentrated sulfuric acid. Okay, so these are the two reactants, NaCl and concentrated sulfuric acid. Now, so first we take NaCl in this round bottom flask. Now, this round bottom flask is fitted with a Thistle funnel and a delivery tube. Okay, the delivery tube, it should be like this. In fact, now first we take NaCl in this round bottom flask, and then from the Thistle funnel we just pour some concentrated sulfuric acid drop by drop here. Okay, and the reaction starts between NaCl and concentrated sulfuric acid. And in fact we have to heat it, but the temperature should be below 200 degree Celsius. Okay, so NaCl reacts with concentrated sulfuric acid and then below 200 degree Celsius. So we get NaHSO4 and HCl. Okay, HCl gas. So this NaCl and H2SO4, they reacts here, and the temperature is heated, it's below 200 degrees Celsius, and the HCl gas that is formed, it's passed through here, and then it is passed through concentrated sulfuric acid, to absorb moisture. So that means concentrated sulfuric acid here is acting as a drying agent, but the concentrated sulfuric acid here is acting as a reactant. Okay, so HCl formed, then it pass through this concentrated sulfuric acid and it get dried up, and then HCl is then collected in this gas jar by upward displacement of air, because HCl is a heavier gas. So as HCl gas is collected, the air from here goes up. So therefore this is upward displacement of air. Okay, so collection is upward displacement of air. Now why it is collected by upward displacement of air? Because it is heavier than air. So it is heavier than air, and therefore we can collect it, and not collected by downward displacement, not collected by downward displacement of water, because generally most of the gas is collected by downward displacement, but this gas cannot be not collected by downward displacement of water, because HCl is highly soluble in water. Okay, it's a highly soluble in water. And then purification means drying, as I have already told you, drying, passing through concentrated sulfuric acid. So as I have told you already, HCl gas first formed here, then first it is passed through this concentrated sulfuric acid solution, it gets dried up, and then we collect it here. Okay. Now, why the temperature is maintained around 200, means below 200, not above 200 degrees Celsius? So it's very important question. Now if I take temperature above 200 degrees Celsius, so that means greater than 200 degrees Celsius, then what happens, you see? So NaCl plus H2SO4 concentrated, and if I take above 200 degrees Celsius, then instead of sodium bisulfate, means sodium hydrogen sulfate, we get Na2SO4, because that NaHSO4 decomposes further and it forms Na2SO4 and HCl. Okay, but if I use less than 200 degrees Celsius, as in normal case in the laboratory preparation, we get what? NaHSO4. Now the problem with Na2SO4 is that this Na2SO4 forms a hard crust in the inside wall of the flask, like this. So it sticks to the glass, so it forms a crust, whereas NaHSO4 remains soluble, it does not form any crust, but Na2SO4 forms a hard crust inside this. So what happens, it forms an insulating layer now, and now lot of fuel will be wasted to heat it, and then it is also difficult to remove this, it's difficult, and the apparatus get damaged, and even it gets cracked. Okay, it gets cracked because due to this unequal expansion, it gets cracked because it forms an insulating layer. And therefore to avoid this, we should always take the temperature as below 200 degrees Celsius, not above 200 degrees Celsius, because at above 200 degrees Celsius, instead of NaHSO4 we get Na2SO4, which forms a hard crust in the inner wall of the flask, and therefore which is difficult to remove. It sticks to the glass, difficult to remove, hence fuel is wasted and glass may crack, the apparatus may crack. So that is the reason we use this. Okay, so this is the laboratory preparation. And another question they ask, that why we use concentrated sulfuric acid, why don't we use nitric acid? Now you have to understand, we can volatile acid Now first of all understand volatile acid and non-volatile acid. Volatile means which evaporates quickly, evaporates normally, evaporates very quickly, and it does not evaporate quickly. So that means they fumes. So volatile acid means when you open the mouth they fumes and they evaporates. And non-volatile acid do not. Now volatile acid, out of the common mineral acid that we know, HCl and HNO3 are volatile acid, and H2SO4 is a non-volatile acid. Non-volatile acid. Now volatile acid can be prepared. Can be prepared by non-volatile acid. But non-volatile acid cannot be prepared. By volatile acid, because generally we don't use a volatile acid to prepare any other acid, because the vapor of volatile acid mixes with that product. Now you try to understand, instead of sulfuric acid, okay, just imagine, instead of sulfuric acid, if I take nitric acid. Now sulfuric acid is a non-volatile acid, so what happens when it falls here drop by drop, then this sulfuric acid does not fumes. So there is no chance of mixing that sulfuric acid with that HCl vapor. So here the vapor that is formed is only HCl vapor, and that HCl vapor comes out, and then we get that. But suppose instead of H2SO4 if I take HNO3, then what will happen with this HCl? The HNO3 vapor from this will also get mixed up. So that will be a problematic for us. So you will get impurities, as HNO3 vapor will also volatile out with HCl vapor. So hence we don't use nitric acid, we use sulfuric acid. So very important question, why we don't use nitric acid? Because nitric acid vapor may volatilize out or evaporate out along with HCl vapor, and hence we don't use nitric acid. Okay. Okay, now we'll do laboratory preparation of that hydrochloric acid. Now it's same, first we have to prepare hydrogen chloride gas, as we have seen previously, concentrated sulfuric acid and NaCl drop by drop, and then the reaction starts and we get this reaction, NaCl plus H2SO4 concentrated, temperature below 200 degrees Celsius, we are heating it to below 200 degrees Celsius, we get NaHSO4 and HCl gas. And as this HCl gas is formed, now if we dissolve this HCl gas into water, that is hydrochloric acid. Okay. Now suppose we want to prepare hydrochloric acid, and therefore we have taken a trough containing water, and this HCl gas that is formed, will pass it and it will form hydrochloric acid. Okay. But this process is dangerous. You know why? Because HCl is highly soluble in water, and in this case the rate of dissolution is faster than the rate of production. then the rate of production of HCl gas. That means what? When NaCl and H2SO4 they are reacting, we are getting NaHSO4 which is remaining in the solution, and we are getting HCl gas, and this HCl gas is dissolving here and we get hydrochloric acid. That is the concept. But the thing is that the hydrogen chloride gas dissolve at once. It's because it is highly soluble, it dissolves very quickly, and this rate of dissolution is faster than the rate of production. So that means the HCl is producing here, but the dissolution of HCl gas is much faster than the production of HCl gas here. Now then what will happen? The HCl gas that will be formed, it is very quickly dissolving. Now since it is very quickly dissolving, here there forms a vacuum. A vacuum. That means a low pressure is formed, because all the HCl gas is passed through here and gets dissolved. So now there is no air or no gas. So therefore in this flask there is a low pressure. Now here the atmospheric pressure, that if the pressure is low here, and due to this atmospheric pressure, this water will be pushed up back to the flask, and this is called back suction. So that means as soon as HCl dissolve, and it dissolve very fast, producing a low pressure here, a vacuum here, and due to this the atmospheric pressure here pushes this water back to the flask, and then what will be a problem? Because if you see, this is what? Concentrated sulfuric acid, and when water reacts with acid, the reaction is highly exothermic, and even the flask may explode, because the reaction with acid and water is highly exothermic. Concentrated sulfuric acid, when there is a back suction, this water goes back to the flask, and where already concentrated sulfuric acid is there, and it's heated, hot concentrated sulfuric acid, and when this water goes here, and when this water reacts with this concentrated sulfuric acid, in fact reacts, then the reaction is highly exothermic, and it's a lot of heat is produced, and it may explode, and there will be an accident. There can be an accident. So in fact this is not the way how we dissolve hydrogen chloride gas in water. Now to prevent this back suction, there is a way. Now see that. So to prevent this back suction, we use a funnel arrangement. Okay. Now see. What we do, we fit a funnel. Okay. We fix a funnel here like this. And this funnel is kept on the surface of water. That means it does not get inside, because it's funnel, so here it is air, so it does not dip. So the funnel is kept on the surface like this. Now see what happens. The reaction starts. NaCl plus H2SO4, temperature below 200 degrees Celsius, you get NaHSO4 and HCl gas. So HCl gas is formed, HCl is formed, it passed through here, and now also the HCl gas will dissolve very quickly, and when it dissolves very quickly, there will be a low pressure here. Okay, low pressure, no problem. And there also there will be a back suction. But when there will be a back suction, the water will fill into this funnel like this, and when the water from this water fill in the funnel, the level of the water here will fall because this water get inside up to here. Now what will happen? The level of the water falls and there will be a gap. So there is an air gap, because as the water, there is a back suction and the water enters the funnel. As soon as the water enters the funnel, the level of the water outside drops, and when the level of the water outside drops, there forms a gap between the funnel and the surface of the water, and so what, there becomes a gap, and from this gap air from the surrounding, they get inside this flask, and again from the low pressure, again it becomes normal pressure. So that means now again the funnel falls. Okay, so that means what you can understand. So as soon as the back suction starts, there becomes an air gap, and when there is an air gap, the air inside it and normalizing the pressure here. So if there is the pressure is normalized, now there will be no back suction. So this process continues. Again the funnel falls, again HCl comes and dissolve quickly, again there is a back suction, so the level of the water inside the funnel increases, but the level of the water outside the funnel decreases, so there becomes an air gap, and from that air gap, air from the surrounding enters to the flask again, and then creating a normal pressure. So this is the funnel arrangement. So this is how we prepare hydrochloric acid directly from that arrangement of hydrogen chloride gas. Directly that delivery tube is dipped in water, but the delivery tube is not directly dipped in water. We just fix a funnel in it and keep the funnel on the surface of the water, and then this back suction is prevented or minimized, and so therefore now there is no chance of any explosions. So that is the main idea of funnel arrangement. So in this funnel arrangement also make sure that it provides a large surface area, so when HCl gas comes, it provides a large surface area to dissolve in water. Otherwise, directly if I put the delivery tube, then it just give this much surface of water to dissolve. But instead of that, if I use a funnel, now the HCl, it provides a large surface area and dissolution is more uniform and proper. And not only that, it provides a large surface area, but the main reason of using this funnel is to minimize or to prevent the back suction. So that is how we prepare hydrochloric acid. Okay, now we'll do an experiment that is known as fountain experiment. Now this fountain experiments proves two properties of HCl gas. Okay, fountain experiment means proves two properties. The first is that HCl is highly soluble in water, and the second thing is that HCl is acidic in nature. So this fountain experiment proves these two properties. So first, HCl is highly soluble in water, and the second is HCl is acidic in nature. So for that, you can see in a ring and clamp stand. So first we have taken the flask containing HCl gas and now inverted it. We have inverted it, and with this is a rubber cork, and in this cork there are two holes, and one hole we have fitted a dropper, a dropper, and another hole we have taken a jet tube. So jet tube means which is open at both ends, means it's pipe. Okay, it's jet tube open at both ends. Jet tube. In this trough we have taken what? Blue litmus solution. And in this dropper, the dropper should contain a little bit of water in its bulb. Okay, so this is water that is present inside the dropper. Just a little bit of water the dropper can hold, you can understand. Now to start that fountain experiment, what we'll do, initially we'll press this dropper. Now when we press this dropper, this little amount of water will come out from here, will sprinkle out from here, and this little amount of water is enough to dissolve a large volume of HCl gas, because HCl is highly soluble. So this much water, now you can understand this jar is full of HCl gas. Now when you press this, the water comes out. This much little water dissolve a larger volume of HCl gas. Now when this gas get dissolved, it forms hydrochloric acid, and it falls as a liquid in this lower part. So what happens, that a large amount of HCl gas got dissolved. Now when this large amount of HCl gas got dissolved, what will happen here? Here will be a low pressure, because previously it was full of HCl gas, so it was high pressure, it was on pressure. Now as soon as you press this dropper and some water got out, then that little bit of water is enough to dissolve a large volume of HCl gas. And due to this, what happens, since a large volume of HCl gas got dissolved, there becomes a low pressure. Now since there becomes a low pressure, now here the atmospheric pressure is acting, and this atmospheric pressure will push this water, and there will form a fountain, and the fountain will be in fact a red in color, red fountain. So you'll see a fountain. So continuously there will be a fountain as long as this water is here. So now you can understand the first thing is that why the fountain has occurred, why the water is pushed up, because there becomes a low pressure. Now why there is a low pressure? Because the HCl gas dissolved in this water. That proves that HCl is highly soluble in water. And the second is that why this blue litmus solution turns into a red fountain, because the blue litmus is turning red. Now the question is why that blue litmus is turning red, because HCl is acidic in nature. So very important experiment is this, okay, fountain experiment. So the aim of fountain experiment is to prove, the first thing is that HCl is highly soluble in water, and the second is HCl is acidic in nature. Okay. Okay, now we'll do chemical properties of HCl. Now I hope all of you have done acid, base and salt before starting this HCl or H2SO4 chapter or ammonia chapter. It is always advisable naturally to first study acid, base and salts, because HCl is an acid, sulfuric acid is an acid, ammonia is basic in nature. So from that acid, base and salt only you can understand the full chapter. So now chemical properties of HCl means whatever you have studied in chemical properties of acid, if you remember, the same thing. So you have already studied this, that metal plus acid gives salt and hydrogen. So if I take Na plus HCl, you get NaCl plus H2. So this will be the reaction. If I take K plus HCl, we get KCl plus H2. But remember, this two reaction is highly explosive and hence neglected. We don't do this reaction, hence neglected, because it is dangerous. Although they react, but it is dangerous. But other metals reacts normally. So calcium plus HCl will give you what? Salt and hydrogen. Similarly, zinc plus HCl will give you zinc chloride and hydrogen. Similarly, magnesium plus HCl will give you MgCl2 plus hydrogen. Okay. The next property you know, acid plus base gives salt and water. So this is neutralization reaction. And water base are oxides and hydroxides. and hydroxides of metals. So that you know after this. So acid plus base gives salt and water. So like metallic oxide and metallic hydroxide are base. So Na2O, this is a base, react with acid to give NaCl plus H2O. NaOH, this is also a base, react with acid to give salt and water. Similarly, if you take say any other metallic oxide, MgO plus HCl, we'll get what? Magnesium chloride, magnesium MgCl2 plus H2O. If you take magnesium hydroxide, MgOH whole twice plus HCl, you get what? MgCl2 plus water. So similarly, zinc oxide plus HCl will give you ZnCl2 plus water. Zinc hydroxide plus HCl gives ZnCl2 plus water. Similarly, aluminum oxide plus HCl will give you aluminum chloride and water. So like this. Okay, understand? Similarly, carbonates or hydrogen carbonates plus acid will give you what? Will give you salt plus water plus carbon dioxide. So carbonates or hydrogen carbonates give you salt, water and carbon dioxide. So carbonate, carbonate the valency is CO3 2 minus, and hydrogen carbonate it is HCO3 minus 1. So like this, if you take sodium carbonate Na2CO3 plus HCl, you get what? NaCl plus H2O plus CO2. Similarly, if you take sodium hydrogen carbonate, also known as sodium bicarbonate plus HCl, will give you again NaCl plus H2O plus CO2. Similarly, if you take magnesium carbonate, MgCO3 plus HCl, will give you what? MgCl2 plus H2O plus CO2. And similarly, magnesium bicarbonate also MgCOH HCO3 whole twice, again plus HCl, will give you MgCl2 plus H2O plus CO2. Okay. Okay, now the fourth one is sulfite or hydrogen sulfite plus acid will give you salt plus water plus sulfur dioxide. Okay, so salt plus water plus sulfur dioxide. Sulfite is SO3 2 minus, hydrogen sulfide is HSO3 minus 1. So similarly, here also we will get Na2SO3 plus HCl will give you salt plus water plus SO2. NaHSO3 plus HCl will give you salt plus water plus SO2. Say MgSO3 plus HCl, MgCl2 plus H2O plus SO2, again MgHSO3 whole twice plus HCl gives you MgCl2 plus H2O plus SO2. Okay. Okay, now a very important part is reaction of HCl with thiosulfates. Now thiosulfates, the formula of the radical is H2O3 minus 2. Now when thiosulfates, say sodium thiosulfate Na2H2O3 react with HCl, you will get salt, you will get water, you will get sulfur dioxide, and also you will get sulfur and yellow PPT, yellow precipitate of sulfur. Okay, now if you see this reaction, this is sulfite. So sulfite react with HCl to give you salt, water and sulfur dioxide. But thiosulfate reacts with HCl to give you salt, water, sulfur dioxide and also yellow PPT of sulfur. So this is the main, how can we distinguish between sulfite and thiosulfite? Now distinguish between sulfites and thiosulfates. Like how the question comes, how can you chemically distinguish between say sodium sulfite and sodium thiosulfate? So for that, what we can say in the answer, ki we will add dilute HCl to both the sample. On one sample, on one, we will get yellow PPT of sulfur, and that compound is thiosulfate, or in fact sodium thiosulfate. So that means we don't know which one is sodium sulfite and which one is sodium thiosulfate, but they told me you have given two samples. Okay, on one we have a sodium sulfite, on the other container we have sodium thiosulfate. Now how can you distinguish which one is sodium sulfite and which one is sodium thiosulfate? So what we will do, on both we will add dilute HCl to both, and on one we will get what? We will get yellow particles of sulfur. In which case we will get, in sodium thiosulfate you will get yellow particle of sulfur. So what you get here? Salt plus water plus sulfur dioxide and plus sulfur. So this is yellow PPT. But in this case you will not get yellow PPT, but you will get what? NaCl you will get H2O and you will get SO. Okay, so this reaction, this is very important reaction, so remember it. Okay. Okay, now next is reaction with nitrate. HCl generally does not react with nitrates, but it reacts with lower nitrates. Okay, like lead nitrate, mercury 1 nitrate and silver nitrate. Okay, so PbNO3 all twice plus HCl, and it gives white PPT of lead chloride, PbCl2. This is white PPT, and you get HNO3. Similarly, Hg2NO3 all twice plus HCl, you give mercury 1 chloride, again this is also white PPT, and HNO3. Similarly with silver nitrate also. So with silver nitrate, you get AgCl, again Kurdi white precipitate, Kurdi white PPT and HNO3, okay, and this silver nitrate forms in HNO3, so that means it forms a white precipitate. So that means this silver chloride is insoluble in nitric acid, so we can see it is insoluble in nitric acid, but it is soluble in ammonium hydroxide. It is soluble in ammonium hydroxide due to the formation of diamine silver 1 chloride. So it becomes soluble. So when this Kurdi white precipitate, with this Kurdi white precipitate, if I add ammonium hydroxide solution, so we get diamine silver 1 chloride. So it's a complex salt. Now diamine silver 1 chloride, how to write the formula? Okay, in a easier way, you just write silver chloride Ag and leave a gap, and you write silver chloride like this, and they told what, and then diamine, amine means NH3 ammonia, and di means 2, so it is 2 like this, okay. So this both is the positive radical of the salt and this is the negative radical. So in fact the formula is like this, AgNH3 whole twice Cl, okay. So and water. So this is colorless solution. So that means first AgNO3 react with HCl, forms a Kurdi white precipitate and nitric acid. That means this Kurdi white precipitate is insoluble in nitric acid, but this Kurdi white precipitate is soluble in ammonium hydroxide solution, okay. So that means it reacts with ammonium hydroxide solution to form this diamine silver 1 chloride, and this again if this diamine silver 1 chloride NH3 Cl, again if it reacts with nitric acid, again we get AgCl as a precipitate, again Kurdi white PPT is formed. Now this reaction is very, very important, and this reaction also acts as a test for HCl, okay. So understand, so very important reaction. So this is the reaction with nitrate, and the last chemical properties is metal sulfide. So this is also a general property of an acid. Metal sulfide plus acid gives salt and hydrogen sulfide. And metal sulfide, say sodium sulfide plus HCl will give you NaCl plus H2S. Say MgS plus HCl will again give you MgCl2 plus H2S, okay. So that means you can understand. Now after this is test for HCl. Now one of the test for HCl I have already told you. So this reaction is very important. So how can you test hydrochloric acid? So silver nitrate and HCl give a Kurdi white precipitate which is insoluble in nitric acid but soluble in ammonium hydroxide solution due to the formation of diamine silver 1 chloride, and this silver 1 chloride again on reacting with nitric acid, again the thick Kerr-Dewey precipitate is formed. So this is a confirmatory test of hydrochloric acid. And another test for hydrochloric acid that also you have done, that it reacts with ammonium hydroxide solution to form NH4Cl and water. Now this is dense white fumes. Now what we do, now if a jar containing HCl, gas or acid, no problem. Now if I bring a glass rod dipped in ammonium hydroxide solution near the mouth of the jar, then dense white fumes will be formed. And the dense white film is due to this ammonium chloride. So these are the two main tests for hydrochloric acid. Okay, so this is the end of this chapter. According to the, I am just teaching you according to the ICSE syllabus. In ICSE syllabus, in fact, uses and test and no other reactions are given. You can just go through the scope of the syllabus of ICSE and just follow those points, and I have exactly taught all those points that is given in the scope of syllabus. You may find something extra in the book, so for your knowledge you can go through them, but here I am just sticking to ICSE syllabus. Okay.